Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Pinetop-Lakeside Council to order. We do have a quorum. Councilor Heisler is on the phone with us this evening. Welcome. Please remember to silence your cell phones if you haven't already done that. Item B on, I would ask that you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Mayor.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity we have to meet in this council meeting. This time of year, we're indeed grateful for this great country that we live in and for the freedoms and privileges which we enjoy here. We're mindful of those who serve in the armed forces and pray that thou would watch over the men and women who serve there and their families. We're also grateful for all of our first responders and for all that they do for us here. Pray that thou would watch over them and their families. We are grateful for this time of year. We pray that thou would send moisture to our lands, that the monsoons would start and to reinvigorate and to protect our forests. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to serve on the Town Council and pray that thy Spirit will be with us here this evening as we discuss matters important to our community. Bless those who are in our community, and we ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Item B on our agenda tonight is call to the public. This is a business meeting of the Town Council. The town values and welcomes public input. Please address the council as a whole and not individual council members. Do not address staff or members of the audience. Council action on items brought up and called to the public is limited by the open meeting law. Council may direct staff to study the matter and reschedule for further consideration at a later date. Items on the agenda will not be heard during call to the public, and individuals are limited to 3 minutes. Like Rob Ingalls would like to speak? Oh, no. Can you hold on a second, Rob? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to share with you last night the People's Voice Committee kicked off the Citizens First Wednesdays that we are going to try to stick with, and our next meeting will be August 2nd. We're meeting at the White Mountain Community Center. Many of you know that was the senior center on Johnson Lane, sort of behind the Larson Library. We had some new faces and we had some familiar faces. Both Annie and Rob were there last night and spoke up and shared information that I felt was valuable. The Citizens for Quality Development and the People's Voice Committee are pleased that our town will be focusing, updating, and revising the general plan as required by state statute, conducting a comprehensive evaluation of issues, and engaging its citizens in determining how the town will grow in the future. The People's Voice Committee stands committed to engaging with the town in the general plan revision process in a positive and proactive manner. TVC is proceeding with efforts to increase citizen awareness of the importance of the process. Forums this summer on how citizens can get involved in the general plan updating process, which will help guide the future of Pinetop-Lakeside. We are working toward that. We suggest considering assistance from the Arizona Planning Association in conducting a Citizens Visioning General Plan Update Involvement Forum. We will try keeping the town and its citizens posted as we pursue and finalize our public involvement outreach plans. Our intent is to help foster and inform citizenry that can provide meaningful input to our town regarding how it wants to see the town grow and address the many issues and challenges that we all face. Presently, the Citizens First Wednesdays is going to be meeting 5 to 7:30 at that White Mountain Community Center. And after last night's turnout, I can sympathize with some of the efforts that have been made by the Planning Commission. As you as a town council, it's hard to get people to come to meetings, but we're going to persevere. And thank you for allowing the public participation to direct you tonight.
Vice Mayor.
So it's 5 to 7:30?
5:30 to 7 p.m.
5:30 to 7.
The first Wednesday every month. It'll be August 2nd, the next time we'll all be together in that open environment. And encourage any of you that would like to come and listen, speak your opinion. We're trying to be casual, but interacting with the citizenry.
And that's, that's PVC and Citizens for Quality Development, both meeting then, is that right?
Primarily, it's in the hands of the People's Voice Committee members, which is just a small group of concerned citizens, not official. We're trying to be casual. The two proponents, Everett Peterson and Marty Harris, are in attendees, and we are exchanging information, so they typically are there too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And how many people were there?
I didn't do a head count. I think there were somewhere less than 20 altogether last night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, you had something else marked on your notice here? Was this the only item you wanted?
I
made a
would
mistake?
think I'm going to sit through the cell tower part. Yes, because
okay.
yes, thank
All
you.
right. Okay, thank you, Rob. Yes.
Just so you know, August 2nd is our National Night Out event. So just letting you know.
Yes, that is national.
And we'll get more info out on that.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody else wish to speak and call to the public? Okay, seeing none then, we'll move on to item C, which is our consent agenda. All items listed are considered routine matters, will be enacted by one motion of the council. There'll be no separate discussion unless the member of council requests that an item or item be removed. Council members may ask questions without removal of the item from the consent agenda, and items removed are considered in their normal sequence unless called out of sequence. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? I'd entertain a-
Mayor,
Yes. Go ahead.
this is Councilor Heisler. If we could remove item C3 from the consent agenda, please.
Of course. Do you have a question about it? That we can.
I have a conflict of interest on that particular item.
Okay. So we will remove item C3 and vote on the first two, and then item C3 separately, and Councilor Heisler will recuse himself on that one. So I'd entertain a motion then. Vice Mayor?
I move to approve the consent agenda, items 1 and 2.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any
Mayor
further
Irwin?
discussion? Yes.
I'm sorry, I think you have to do a motion to remove that item.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Vice Mayor?
I move to remove item 3 of the consent agenda.
Second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. We'll move on then to approving items C1 and 2. Mayor?
I move to approve the consent agenda, items 1 and 2.
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. We'll move on then to item C3, which is consider approval of the town check register for the May 1st through May 31st. Any questions, comments? Entertain a motion then? Mayor?
I move to approve the consent agenda, item 3.
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, and please note that Councilor Heiser recused himself from that one. Thank you. Item D is business before the council. Public comment may be taken at the beginning of each agenda item. After the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff, any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item, either before or after council discussion. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the mayor at any time. Item D1 is the recognition and appreciation for Malaina Spillman's work for her dedication to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee from January 2018 to June of 2023. I've had the privilege of working with Malaina, as well as knowing Malaina for a long time, and she's really done a good job with these kids, and I know now her duties at Public Works have gotten a little bit more extensive, and so it's time to pass the baton on to Mackenzie. But Malaina, thank you for all your work. Would you like to add anything?
I was just going to say it's been, I think I say this like at every council meeting, it truly is my pleasure. I very much enjoyed working with the kids, and I'm fortunate to hand it off to Mackenzie, and so I know they'll be in wonderful hands, and I'll still be able to work with them a little bit while everybody gets settled in, so I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to seeing what they have coming up.
And we have a plaque for you for our appreciation.
Can we get, have you take a picture? Yeah. And while you're doing that, while she's coming up, I've worked with Malaina also since 2018, and it was a perfect fit to bring her in to help at that time.
And we have one of the MIAC members here. Can she jump in the chair? Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. This is Brooke. I'm glad we've got one. Yes.
Thank you, Malaina. You bet.
I love your fingernails too. Very patriotic.
They are very patriotic. I even got the heart on there.
All right, we'll move on then to item D2, which is recognition of Kristi Salskov, Town Clerk, for obtaining her Certified Municipal Clerk, CMC designation. Keith.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I think it was in April of last year that Kristi began as the interim and town clerk. And she has worked very hard over the course of this past year to complete the requirements to receive her certified municipal clerk position. I had to chuckle, and because it's typical Kristi, but the people that review the packet that she gives to them said this was one of the best packets that they had ever seen. So you knew it had to happen. It was going to be, it was a done deal. So it has been a pleasure to work with Kristi. She's got a very gung-ho, she is one that, in the time that she has been here, not just in the clerk positions, there's a saying I heard a long time ago, lift where you stand, and she has done that. When we have had holes that were going to be very difficult to keep going till we had a replacement, Jeremiah's position as being one of those, she stepped in. She was already working with P&Z, but she helped to keep those lights on in that department, and Annie did too. I mean, yeah. But I just don't want to ignore Annie on that. But that was a huge relief and burden off my shoulders and Kevin's. And she has just always had a can-do, I can do it, and she helps everybody in doing their jobs. And so I appreciate the hard work that she has put in for the last year to get this done. It's no small feat. And now she's working on her MMC, and Mackenzie's following. And this is one thing about Kristi. Everybody before her would complain about the clerk before them that they didn't help them get there. And Kristi is doing a great job mentoring Mackenzie in this so that she can get her certified clerk position, her certificate also. So, thank you.
Congratulations, Kristi. We really are lucky that we have you. And I always appreciate, like Keith said, you jumping in wherever. Sure that everything you do is not in your job description, nor is it in anybody's job description, but I think everybody steps in.
Yeah.
So congratulations, and thanks for all your hard work.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then to item D3, which is legal action to approve the appointment of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, MIAC, for a term to extend through May 31st of 2024. Mackenzie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're asking you to approve the appointments of the MIAC members for the year 2023 to 2024. We have one new member, Jackson Woods, who will be appointed, and then the rest of the members, Grace, Jesse, Brooke, who's here, Joe, Sienna, Morgan, Rain, and River are all returning members. So we have a great group.
We definitely have a great group, and I'm glad that Sue Brooke here tonight. Any
I have a
anything else
question.
for Mackenzie? Yes.
Can you, like a
Can
quick,
Go
oh,
ahead, speak into
a quick overview. Can you kind of tell us what the MYAC is and what like your role as and the duties are for this group?
So the MIAC is an advisory committee to the council. So that we have projects, they will have a meeting we want to do 2 this year, each semester, but, so it's to let the council know any issues that the youth might see.
Oh, okay.
So, Councilor Brimhall, if you notice here on our the CDR,
Yes.
under discussion, it kind of talks a little bit about, it's a voice for our youth in the community and bringing issues to us if we need to know that there's something that we need to look at, for example, during the general plan or our community survey that we conducted some time ago. It was important for us to get some of those questions in there to accommodate what the kids are interested in.
I guess I just asked that because I've never seen anything come from this organization, like to the council or any minutes or anything like that, I guess. That's why I was just asking for a little more input on that. Because I did read that, but just wondering more on.
Yeah, and they run a town council meeting every year.
Oh,
They shadow us, we kind of sit back and they actually run the meeting.
cool. All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I'll just piggyback on what you guys are saying. One of their goals is to create a project for this coming year. They've looked at anti-bullying apps, and because that's a huge problem in the schools. There's all sorts of things. So they're working on choosing what that project will be, and then they'll work on it. They'll also be attending the League of Cities conference with us, and because they have one day where they will be participating in the statewide group as a whole, and they'll learn more about their positions. So we have a really good group of kids, so go ahead, sorry.
All right, so I would entertain a motion. Vice Mayor?
I move to approve the appointment of Jackson Woods and approve the reappointments of Grace Smithson, Jesse Stroop, Brooke Horn, Rain Demaliwat, Josiah Greslick, Sienna Greslick, Morgan Eddy, and River Rig to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee with a term to extend through May 31st, 2024.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. That passes unanimously. We look forward to working with you again, Brooke. Thanks for being here this evening. Item D4 is consider reconfirming the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside as the official destination marketing organization for the purpose of coordinating tourism promotion with the Arizona Office of Tourism. Annie, you don't look like Tony,
standing in for Tony tonight. As you all know, in 2019, the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside was recognized as the official destination marketing organization for the community and was approved by the Arizona Office of Tourism to be the site for the official visitor center. AOT recognizes only one DMO per established community, but does not make the designation. The responsibility falls to the local governing authority. The DMO is responsible for tourism promotion and must maintain a tourism-focused website as well as an active social media presence. This designation has been renewed every year since 2019. However, starting this year, the designation will remain in place unless a new DMO is designated. So tonight, we're asking for the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside to be designated as the official destination marketing organization for the purpose of coordinating tourism promotion with the Arizona Office of Tourism.
Annie, any questions or comments for Annie? No, Councilor Smith?
I move to designate the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside as the official destination marketing organization for the community for the purpose of coordinating tourism promotion with the Arizona Office of Tourism.
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on then to item D5. This is a public hearing. Discussion and consideration of resolution number 23-1674 and ordinance number 23-464, amending Title 17, Chapter 17.108.050, signs not requiring a permit to implement political sign-free zones. Jeremiah.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Bring this item to you tonight. It's not easy having to bring it to you guys, the ones who will be affected by it, but I'm going to do my best. The proliferation of political signs during an election can rapidly get out of control. Political signs can interfere with motorists' vision when driving at night or during inclement weather conditions. Political signs can be a distraction and cause accidents on the roadways. These signs present a safety hazard for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians alike. Political signage in the right-of-way is legally not permissible by ADOT per ARS 16-1019I. ADOT's right-of-way is typically 10 feet from the sidewalk. They clutter up our roadsides, making them visually unappealing, detracting from the natural beauty, and may make some areas hard to navigate due to the cluttering of signs at intersections. State statute allows for creating 2 political sign-free areas within a municipality. In these zones, restrictions outlined in ARS section 16-1019F political signs on cities and towns do not apply to commercial tourism, commercial resort, and hotel sign-free zones as municipalities designate those zones. Some of the requirements: the total area of these zones shall not be larger than 3 square miles. The proposed 2 zones contain just under 4/10 of a square mile. As shown in the exhibit, each zone shall be identified as a specific contiguous area where, by resolution of the municipal governing body, the municipality has determined that based on a predominance of commercial tourism, resort and hotel uses within the zone, the placement of political signs within the rights-of-way in the zone will detract from the scenic and aesthetic appeal of the area within the zone and deter its appeal to tourists. At most, 2 zones may be identified within a municipality. Cities and towns can remove political signs in these designated sign-free zones. How it would be enforced: code enforcement will notify the owner of the political sign if it can be identified who the owner is per 16-1019C.5. If it is not shown whom to contact, we can remove the sign per statute. The town may notify the candidate or campaign committee that placed the sign of the violation. If the sign remains in violation at least 24 hours after the jurisdiction notified the candidate or campaign committee, we may remove the sign. The jurisdiction shall contact the candidate or campaign committee and the committee contact and shall retain the sign for at least 10 business days to allow the candidate or campaign committee to retrieve the sign without penalty. Any questions?
I believe in here it states someplace where if you want to put your political sign up on business property, you have to have written permission. Who is going to enforce that, or is that just an honor system?
Good question, and we kind of touched on that in P&Z, and at first the discussion led towards, well, we can just have a verbal okay, but it's easier for us to verify if there is somebody that says, hey, I didn't give them permission. If we have it in writing, then it's easier than just hearsay.
So I guess it would really be, once again, complaint-based if somebody put their sign up in front of
Base hardware and they didn't authorize it, right? Because you can't put it in any right of way on or State Route 260, White Mountain Boulevard, which is actually, like I mentioned, it's already in statute. ADOT's enforcement of that is kind of hit and miss. Have we noticed last political season? I mean, they were everywhere. It was hard to see in some areas, and it really presents a problem to traffic and their distraction. People talk about phones on how they're distracting, but the political signs can become a distraction where there's hundreds, if not thousands of them, and it doesn't really tell you anything about anybody. It just is a name, really. And I saw a study that showed, only 1.7% of the votes are affected by the signs. So in our case, I ran the numbers today just to give you guys an idea on what that would look like. It's like 22 votes.
That's very interesting. Vice Mayor?
Did you say that ADOT right now doesn't allow signs in the right of way?
It's in the state statute. And now, if you talk to them,
Yeah, because
they
I
don't
talked to them,
enforce that.
I was gonna say, well, I talked to them back when I put signs in the right of way and they said it was okay.
Yeah, so I don't know that they're enforcing it up here, so this would give us an opportunity.
Jeremiah already knows I've raised my concerns with him, but I don't like the fact that now there's basically no major thoroughfare in the town where you can put signs in the right of way. Now, I know you say, well, you can go talk to businesses, and that's fine. I generally put out just a handful of signs. I think they are effective. In my case, I would ask the majority of the people where I put the signs, but I still put them in the right of way because you can't see them if you put them over in the private property. That's where there's noticed, is in the right of way, which is why, that's why everybody puts them there. I think it would be much better. I like the idea of limiting the areas where they can be. I think that's absolutely a good thing. What I would like to see is that we designate a single area of 50 to 100 yards where people can put all their signs there, and that place only in the right of way along our major thoroughfares. And that gives them and limits it to that area. I would suggest as you approach Porter Mountain, as you approach the light there, that's not a real aesthetically beautiful area anyway, so cluttering it with signs, I don't think is a problem there. But at any rate, I think it should go back, and I think you should designate a certain area. I like the idea of limiting where they can go, but I think there needs to be a designated area where people can put their signs in the right of way. As I say, I asked permission to put my signs up when I did it. I only did a handful, but again, I always put them in the right of way because you can't see them if they're back on the private property in most cases.
Right, and one thing that I recall from your signs actually had a picture of you on it, so.
Yeah.
And I only saw a few of them around town, so yours were one of the less obtrusive, but, so one of the problems with if we were to proceed that way, that I can see is the two contiguous zones. We're only allowed to have two, and so it would split one, and so it actually, if we went from Porter Mountain, it would go all the way to Rainbow Lake, Lake of the Woods. We'd have to roll it back that far, actually. Or we could reduce it just on Porter Mountain. There's some options there, I guess, that we could look at. Because currently the map, if you look at it, you can't really see it up there, but it extends back behind the bridge. That was the intent, to limit it in the right-of-way there for multiple purposes. Part of this, even the site triangle at 35 miles per hour is like 300 feet. So it's pretty significant. If there's a lot of signs in there and that's the only area, they would get out of control pretty fast there. I could see that. I see your point though, and there's really a limited area where you could put them. And I don't know if you could put them, I guess, outside of the town in the county. I don't know that the county would say no right before, and that there's a whole swath, the county island between in the area you can see up there in the discontinued area, this contiguous area from the lake all the way back towards the Maverick Center.
Of course, that's now, that may change later. But my point is, I think there needs to be a designated area. And I'm just suggesting where I would suggest you put it, but it doesn't have to be there. But I do think there needs to be a designated area where people can put signs in the right of way. As I said, I asked permission, but I put them in the right of way because again, you can't see them if you put them back behind the fence of the business or private property for that matter, so.
And I did extend the zone upon Matt's request to include Mountain Meadow Park as well, because initially that wasn't on there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. I don't think
we're still
should be there, but
we're at 410, and we could do the whole town, I guess, at 3 square miles. We really are just looking at the main area where people drive through and what do we want them to see and have the image of our town. even during a political season, we still have a lot of tourists up here.
And I'd have no problem doing the whole town, but again, put a designated area where you can put signs in the right of way.
So Keith has a comment, but before you go,
Yes.
I have one
Okay.
thing to ask. So the state statute allows these political free zones. Do they allow the counter, what the vice mayor is suggesting, a political designated area?
So I looked at that, and within the area, there was, I found that Fountain Hills actually did that, and they had something strange. I talked to the town attorney about it because they actually allow political signs on the weekend, which would basically
Defeat the purpose?
I mean, it would only really help the local candidates because no one else can get out there during the week and put their sign up and take it down, right? On Monday or, so that was one way. I couldn't get it. I don't know if that's even legal though, because it didn't sound like the town attorney agreed with that. I don't know why Fountain Hills is doing it that way.
Sure. Let me just add, because part of the discussion is about the ADOT right away. And so when there were several banners for events and things like that that got taken down. I mean, ADOT came through and they swept them. And everybody was, whoa, what happened? And so the email from, this is Nye McCarty, he's over in the Flagstaff office for ADOT. His email said, in answer to the question, because we were trying to figure out what's allowed. In his response, he said, over the past few days, a significant number of signs had been pulled from that location for being within the ADOT right-of-way. As long as the entirety of your sign is more than 10 feet away from the edge of the sidewalk, you should be okay. And then there were signs that got missed, and so they were either put up after or just got missed. So there was some confusion. But again, if we, just my thought, I'm just throwing this out. If we create a political free zone on the state highway that is different than what ADOT requires, that could be confusing to candidates because we're essentially giving permission to use ADOT right-of-way. And we don't have that. We don't have that authority. So
Well, I would say we do have that authority because he just told you it has to be a certain limit off, so they would have to
10
be.
feet off.
They would have to be in line with the ADOT regulations, but we're saying this is the only area where you can put those.
But if that's in the ADOT right-of-way, then we're going against the state statute.
Well, we can't say that, but it has to meet ADOT regulations, and I'm fine with that. But
So
we're
if it's
saying
private
we can't go
property,
anywhere.
Are we talking about private property?
No, we're talking about he said there, right, it has to be 10 feet off?
10 feet off.
Yeah,
10 feet off the
I have no
sidewalk.
problem with that.
So that's what he said typically, but the statute's clear that it's within the entire right of way, and that may extend further than that.
The right of way is typically
Yeah.
quite a bit wider than
Yeah.
the 10 feet.
Yeah.
Well, and I personally have had my signs taken down, so you were probably lucky yours weren't taken down if they were inside the right-of-way. It seems to me we're kind of getting farther off a little bit here. My comment is that there's plenty of commercial property in town that's not impacted by this, that you just ask property owners for permission. And yes, it has to be 10 feet back, which I've always gauged it even with the business sign. So if you want to put it at Ace Hardware and their sign is, they had to have a permit for that. If it's a certain length behind the sidewalk, I assume that's kind of the safe zone. That seems to work okay.
It also prevents a candidate placing their sign in front of another candidate's sign.
Not necessarily.
Well, if they have permission from the business, I don't know that they'd, like, say there was somebody running for mayor and the other mayoral candidate put their sign in front of it. I mean, they probably only have permission, I would guess, that the business would only support one candidate.
That's not generally
Not
the case.
not
Quite
necessarily.
often, some will say, say
Well,
yes to anybody who asks.
And I think in past history, I'm not sure that candidates have always asked that permission.
That's true, too.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I could just add, it's neither here nor there for us as staff. This is something that's being passed in other communities in the states. We thought we had so many issues with signs this past year in the parks and things like that, that it really detracted away. So in order to create this is what we came up with. If the council chooses to not, then any candidate that puts their sign, not to pass this, any candidate puts their sign within that 10 feet, they run the risk of having them taken down. So it's neither here nor there for us. It's a decision for the council. So we're not arguing for or against. So.
Counselor Smith?
So enforcement of this.
Right.
We're gonna have to hire temporary people in political season to do this. I could see it. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so my question is about enforcement.
Right.
Are we going to enforce that out of your department?
You want to answer that, Keith?
Well, currently it would be under code enforcement, our code enforcement officer, which is a dual position. We'll be talking a little bit more about that particular position in the next few minutes.
I could see that as for a certain period of time, really time consuming.
Yeah. So we have, just so you know, we're going to be asking in this next budget for an additional part-time code enforcement officer. Not because of this, but just because there's so much that needs to happen within the community. But that would fall to them to take them off and meet those requirements that Jeremiah has pointed out. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know their department's busy as it is. I hate to take away manpower time, womanpower time, whatever, from their department to enforce this. I think we probably will need some additional help for that. Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Vice Mayor?
I don't know, I would say, apparently ADOT is supposed to enforce and not allow the signs at least within 10 feet. So, I mean, our one option is just to leave it to them to enforce it and do nothing. I think it's better for us to say that it shouldn't be along parks and places like that. But I do believe that we should have at least one designated area within the town limits where, again, going by ADOT regulations, people can put their signs.
If we're allowed 4 miles of exclusion, we run a strip.
3 square miles. Yeah.
4 miles through the whole town, and then not run it in one area that's reasonably big, 100 yards long. By de facto, that's all the political signs go there because they're prohibited everywhere else. Is that possible?
It's possible. We only hit 4/10 of a square mile, so another option would be just to allow them along in Lakeside. If that's the choice of the council, if they chose that. If you were talking about just a 3 square mile swath, I mean, it would extend into the neighborhoods. Then if we widen it out, because
get a strip on the east side of the road that
yeah,
would say 50 feet wide, not allowed political.
Well, what I did here is I already included the right-of-ways I included that in the calculation, and it was minimal, really. I didn't expand it into the neighborhoods, the residential neighborhoods. The only area that it goes into residential areas on the right-of-way is on Woodland Road and on Woodland Lake Road to capture the area in the parks.
Thank you, Jeremiah. This is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to address us on this tonight? Okay, seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Councilor Heisler, did you have any questions or comments on this?
I do not.
Thank you. Any further discussion or council?
Would it be
yes.
possible to take, would it be reasonable, would it be reasonable to take no action, give Jeremiah an opportunity to come back and do what Sterling was talking about, and I was just talking about, of excluding them everywhere, have a strip on each side that excludes them, and then not have one area end up, de facto, one area where all the political signs go right there. That's something that, sounds like that's something you could construct, given another month to put it together.
Would that be right to have it concentrated in Lakeside? And people might want it in Pinetop? I'm not sure that that's the right answer either.
I don't think they're going to be fighting for it, though.
Yeah, I don't think.
Well, I disagree because I think political candidates should be able to advertise throughout our whole community. Some people in that end of Pinetop might not go all the way to that end of Lakeside. So I don't know that that's the right answer either. Counselor Smith?
Well, it seems like you're creating a mess if you want every political sign in one 400-yard area. You're going to have nobody reading anything anyway with all of, I mean, everybody put on, who can put up the biggest sign and the one that blocks the most? I don't think that's a viable solution to it. And I think, I kind of agree with the mayor that there's a lot of commercial property on the highway, and you can get permission to put your signs there. I mean, when we ran, that's what we did at the Burley Bear. We had a big one, worked really well. So that's my 2 cents.
Counselor Brimhall?
My thought is, do we, by law, then we have to store them?
Yeah, we have to give them an opportunity to collect their signs. So I think it's the 10 days is what it puts in statute. So minimum 10 days that we would store these signs.
And last year, did we do anything with that?
Huh?
Last year, during the political season, did we have to store any signs?
We didn't store any signs because we didn't have this to enforce. So the only way that we could remove the signs is if they didn't put contact information on. But that, and that's in statute, but there was political candidates across the spectrum from local, county, and state that didn't adhere to that. So we didn't really enforce it, so we didn't remove any signs. We asked some candidates to remove signs.
Okay. So then right here where it says, and shall not in any way present a traffic hazard or vision obstruction. Even then, so if we remove it, we still have to store it. We can't say, hey, if you guys obstruct any vision or any obstacles, we're just gonna get rid of it.
So what's in current statute, if this was not passed, is it says that if in emergency situation, we can move the sign and place it somewhere else. Doesn't necessarily say we'd store it, so maybe we move it out of the side triangle, for instance. So,
and put it in the trash.
Yeah, not necessarily, no, not put it in the trash. Move it to somewhere else. But if we were able to do this after 10 days, and if we contact them and they don't respond, then we would be able to get rid of the signs if they don't come pick them up.
Okay.
It seems to me that what's written here is pretty much a minimalist approach. And we could try it and see if we think it works. And if it doesn't work, then change it.
Jeremiah,
Good point.
I wanted to respond to Councilmember Brimhall. So last year we did have some across from the high school that the neighborhood across from the high school, I can't remember the name of it, they were complaining that when they turned out they couldn't see, the signs were really big. Oh. We don't remove the signs with elections. It's not good to do. We call the Navajo County elections, they come and do it and they store them.
Okay, cool, okay.
And it looks like P&Z really didn't have a whole lot to say on this.
I believe the vote was 5 for it, 1 against, and 1 abstention.
Again, I think we should designate a certain area, and I would say we put it back to planning and zoning, and you guys look at that designating a certain area. I just think that would be, but also I do believe we should change it to verbal authorization as a practical matter rather than written authorization. I understand the enforcement would be easier where there's written, but I think pretty easy if a landowner calls up and says, I didn't authorize anybody to put signs here, then enforcement could go out and take the signs. I mean,
we could do that in the motion tonight.
But I think verbal would be much more appropriate than written in that sense.
Yeah, it'd be administratively easier and cleaner too as well. Now I think about it, just because otherwise we'd have to issue a temporary sign permit. There's, obviously this is in the section where it says signs not requiring permit, so.
Big Bomb?
I would like to ask, maybe this is off in left field, but the problem to me seems not just for our local people who are running for election here, but it's those statewide things and those great big signs that how can we control that other than doing something like this? So I think planning and zoning has really created something that's very useful, especially to combat the danger of driving with those big signs that do restrict where you can see. I mean, I think it's dangerous, and especially when you go to Phoenix and you're just bombarded with just, so I think we're doing something really good to do this. So I'm in favor of it.
I have another question. I mean, was there an uptick in accidents or anything because of signs?
Not necessarily. There were some complaints, as mentioned. There are studies that show that it is distracting to drivers, though, when they're it's almost just as distracting as looking at your phone, except you can put your phone away and you can't put these signs away unless we do something, the council takes action.
So kind of a question that if we do like a designated sign area, would the PD anticipate that would increase any accidents? If there's more signs to look at, would that increase any possibility of, hey, I rear-ended somebody because they, whatever?
There's studies that show that it does create a traffic hazard. Even the intelligent traffic systems that ADOT uses, they actually did a study on those that showed they were checking to see if it reduced accidents, and the accidents were actually increased because people were reading those signs.
You're talking about the electronic signs? That's interesting. I agree with Councilor Krigbaum. I think this is a great. I understand the Vice Mayor's concerns, but I do think there's plenty of commercial land in town. It just puts a little bit more burden on the candidates to secure that permission, which in my mind they should be getting anyway. Sure. Mr. Krigbaum, if you wanted to make a motion, or anybody, yes, you still have more comments.
Do we need to change this, though? I mean, it seems that we do agree that it should be verbal authorization, not...
Yeah, we can amend that.
And again, I would still like to see it look at designating just one area where it would be feasible, and then that pushes them all there.
But you had some concerns about the legality of that? Is that what I...
Right, because, I mean, if we say, okay, only 10 feet, there could still be right-of-way outside that, so it's actually, we say it's okay, but it's actually against state statute, and we don't want to get in that situation. And then also, if we say we were to focus on reducing it on Porter Mountain Road, that's a pretty busy intersection, especially, I mean, there's school kids and traffic there every day. And if we had thousands of signs, I'm not saying we would, but if we did have 1,000 signs stacked right there, it'd make it worse even. And there are plans to actually get that area out of the floodplain, develop it commercially. I'm working on something in the background with FEMA to do that, to make that happen. NEC building is going to be going away, so that area could actually change the face and be a catalyst for Lakeside. That's my hope, at least, to kickstart redevelopment in that Lakeside area.
Mr. Krigbaum?
I would like to make the motion. I really think we should move forward on this, and if you don't want to vote for it, then that's fine. But I move to approve resolution number 23-1674 and ordinance number 23-464, amending chapter 17.108.050.8, signs not requiring a permit, and implementing political sign-free zones per ARS 16-1019F.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Would you consider amending your motion to allow the property owner's permission to be verbal as opposed to written?
No.
You want it written?
I'd like it to be written. I think it makes it, especially for the statewide offices and I mean, this is going to be a big election. If we want to cut down on the visual cacophony, I mean, it's going to be all over the place. And I think to make as much restriction on this as possible is a good idea. So I do not want to amend it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I would prefer it to be verbal personally. I don't know what other council members are, so.
Just because I think it would be a burden to administer to decide if they had on that particular sign obtained a written response, because we would have, in order to enforce it, we would have to have them get a written response and file it with us, so that then we could look at the sign and see. So I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but I think it's some good ministry.
Councilor Brimhall?
Could we include that as a verbal or written?
I don't think that really adds to it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if someone calls, it's, because a lot of individuals via email or something like that, I don't know. I mean, if it doesn't, I say forget it. I just don't know if somebody would think, oh, I gotta call them up and say, is it okay if I put a sign on there to get your verbal approval?
Yeah, how are you going to prove that it's
I mean,
approved?
I don't mind the whole approval part. I just want to, does it matter? Like, if it doesn't matter to the individual or by law or whatever, then that's fine. I would just say verbal as well.
I would consider email verbal as well.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I would comment too. I think a text also would be I mean.
That would be a confirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool,
and obviously we wouldn't know unless there's a complaint, and then we would have to verify, so.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve this as written. Further discussion then? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Councilor Heisler, how do you vote?
I vote in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you. If I'm counting right, that fails by a 4-3. Is there another motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilor Smith?
I move to approve resolution number 23-1674 and ordinance number 23-464, amending chapter 17.108.050.8, signs not requiring a permit and implementing political sign-free zones per ARS 16-1019, paragraph F. And in paragraph C, delete the word written.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
That's good.
We have a motion and a second allowing verbal approval on property owners' property. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 5-2. Thank you for all your work on this, Jeremiah, and thank you to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Appreciate it. Item D6 is discussion and consideration of resolution number 23-1673, entering into an intergovernmental agreement between the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside and the state of Arizona to receive funding in the amount of $2,242,200 for the Porter Mountain Improvement Project in the vicinity of Blue Ridge Elementary School. Matt, you were getting pretty excited there, right?
I was. I thought you were going to give me $22 million. Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This one's an interesting one as we've been working towards this since 2018. As most of you are aware, I attached the preliminary drawings and design to your packet so you're able to kind of look through it and see what this project will entail. We have exhausted every effort to get money for this. We do know that there's a problem out there, and we do understand that we need to do something. However, it's very complicated because it crosses 3 jurisdictions. So we have the county, we have the school district that owns half the road, and we have the town that owns half the road. So it makes it complicated because, as you guys know, we just don't have enough funds to come up with a $2.2 million project, and especially an improvement project. So we were able to apply to the state this year through the bills that were going around. I don't know how else to say it. And we were one of the few projects in Arizona that made it all the way to the end. I kept looking at the list, and projects for Sholo were dropping off, and projects in the rest of the county were dropping off, and this one made it all the way to the end. So I'm pleased to bring this to you, and I'm excited, and I'm hoping that we can move forward to make this happen. So is there any questions on this one, Mayor?
I have one question before I allow the others. So we have a shortfall of about $224,000.
Yeah.
At one point, we had a conversation with the school district and the county about helping with that.
Yeah, so if you actually look into the budget on this, there's a 25% contingency, which is $262,000. There's also, excuse me, Mayor, there's also a path to the west side of Porter Mountain Road there, or Penrod Road, Porter Mountain Road, I apologize. And that path can also be paved by us. So I think I have enough in my back pocket to make this possible no matter what happens. So if we need the contingency money, I can cut that from the project, and that's the way I asked the engineers to draw it. So if all else fails, we'll pave the path from the bridge down to the school. And it's completely separated from the actual roadway. So.
Big Bomb?
I am continually amazed at how you make things work, and what a congratulations to you for sticking with this project, which when they put the school out there, I was really concerned about the children's safety, and you have made this, I think, an excellent project, and my only concern is money. And if you can make that work because you have things in your back pocket, that's wonderful. But I just am continually amazed at how you make things happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I have a question. Explain to me what the pedestrian refuge island, I think I understand what that is, but make sure.
Yeah, so in the area where the refuge, there's two of them actually in this project, and what that is in a corridor like this with the traffic counts the way they are, it doesn't quite qualify for what we would call a high beacon, which would be basically like a stoplight, and you'd push the button and it would stop traffic in both ways. So in this situation, what you do is you use an island, and you build an actual island out there. So the kids will cross into an area that is protected, and then they'll move down the road a little bit and they'll cross again. So basically, they will be stopping traffic and warning traffic at two different locations as they cross the road. So in those areas, it'll make it 3 lanes wide. It'll be about the size of 3 lanes wide, and the 2 outer lanes will have to travel around the island, which will also help us slow traffic down. There'll be hybrid beacons there. When they push the button, the flashing lights are gonna come on, and then they can stage in the center of the road. Because there's so much traffic on that road, we really need to make it to where it's very visible and it pops out for the traffic and for the kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Just to follow up, the one at, I don't know if it's Andalyn or Amanda there, looks like a very, very small island. Is that?
No, they're the same size. It's just the way the drawing is. So they'll be built the same size. But yeah, they'll actually, what the idea with it is when you walk out to the island, you turn and you walk towards the direction that the traffic's coming towards you. And the idea with that is so that you look forward and see what your next hazard would be. And then in this case would be vehicles. And that's the idea behind them. It's actually a really good design. They're using them in Phoenix and all over the country, and they've had really good luck with them. Jeremiah could add to that too. So.
Okay. Councilor Craigbaum.
I had one more question, and that is, do you have any idea how long this is going to take? Is there any limit on when they give us the funds, or how soon you have to get started, or the timeline is what I'm interested in?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, I'm already in contact with Kimley Horn, our engineers on this one. They are already moving forward. We should see surveyors in a couple of weeks once this passes, but they're geared up and ready to go. Our goal is to shoot for next summer break. And as you can imagine, the reason we're doing that is to avoid the school time. So we'll start before the summer break on things that are not impacting the road system. And then we'll set the bid for that they'll have a timeline during the summer break to complete the stuff inside the roadway, if that makes sense.
Councilor Brimhall?
Question on number 1, where it talks about construct paved pathway including at the creek crossing, does that go all the way up to the school, or does it stop right at that it looks like it stops right at that road going back to the green waste facility. Is that correct? It's gonna stop right there?
No, so that carries across the corridor there where the what creek is
Porter
that?
Creek.
Porter Creek. Porter Creek crosses there. There's no way to get kids from that little subdivision down to the school. They actually have to walk on where the guardrails are. So we're actually gonna be putting a path through there to that little community up there on the hill.
And so because for example, if you look on the other side at number 2, there's that will eventually connect to the school. The school has paved another section that goes straight down to the school. Do you know if the school is gonna plan on connecting anything to that side?
These all connect together in the center. So when you look at this drawing, this is a preliminary design drawing. It's just bringing up all of the issues that we have to resolve.
Okay, perfect.
So all of those things will be resolved in the designs that I'll have for you probably this winter time. So we can look at those. I can bring them back if you would so choose before we go to bid. You'll see them in the bid packet as well.
Cool.
So at that point, I can email them out, or we can send them out in my monthly report so you guys can see them.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Just one more question for me anyway, I see number 4, construct new roadway to accommodate school traffic. Is that just for buses, or is that going to be where the traffic comes in, drops off kids, or picks up kids and then goes out that road and out the...
So the intent of that road is for first responders. So once I get, what I'll be able to do is we've discussed widening the shoulders on this. Once they get to the first NECs, the road that turns off into the commercial corridor there, the first responders will actually be able to come into the back door of the school. It'll give them 2 accesses. If you have an incident at the school right now during the peak time on the road, it's extremely hard to get first responders to this school. 1, because the shoulders aren't built up big enough, and 2, because there's no other access except from Sholo. So that second access there is to try to give us another access point where we can try to get people through to, is really what that comes down to.
Okay, so it's more though just for first responders and maybe for...
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a paved road, so if they so choose to use it as an exit, I can't stop them. It'll be on school property, but the intent behind it was to get another access for first responders. Both the Lakeside Fire Department was here for these plans, so was some of the PD and the preliminary of these plans that we put together, and that was some of the discussion. At one point, we had 3 lanes all the way down the center of the road to act so that first responders could go down the center. But with the pedestrian issues we have on that road, we really needed those islands, and so that kind of caused problems with what we were trying to do there. Also, we didn't want to build up the shoulders right now because with all the traffic problems we have out there, we don't want people using the edge of the roads to pass people. They already do it now in the roundabout.
Mr. Brimhall?
Looking at this, I mean, it's amazing work, but maybe that's not the point. A lot of work's going to go into this. Do you guys anticipate that it's going to reduce traffic at all, or not reduce traffic, but speed traffic through there at all? Or it's just going to be, nope, it's going to be a mess still. It's just going to make it safer.
So this gets really complicated, and we're getting into the engineering of it, really is what we're getting into. But when you start to change the flow of traffic in an area where there's pedestrians, you have to take this and go very slow and be very methodical, okay? And the reason I say that is because you start increasing speeds where you've got children that are crossing that previously had no accidents, and you increase the speeds or make the flows faster, and then somebody gets hurt, we're gonna end up in lawsuits. So the intent here is that the ADT does not need a flow increase. It's about a 15-minute time period of actual severe traffic. And so you don't want to change the flow of traffic for a 15-minute time period in a day. Does that make sense? If it was an all-day problem where you had, significant traffic problem throughout the day, then you would start to look in, to your flow issues. But after looking deeper into this, there is no traffic issue out there other than a 15-minute time window that people get really upset about. And there's nothing we can change about that, and I would highly suggest to stay away from that to keep those speeds down. The lower we can keep those speeds down when kids are trying to go to school, the more protective we are of our children.
Councillor Craigbaum.
I think that's all really important. The thing that has always scared me so much about that road are the big hauling trucks, the ones that have chips in, and the logging trucks, because they're using that as a cutoff. If they were told that they had to not use that road at the 15-minute interval during the day, that would make me a lot happier, because the kids would be a lot safer. Those big trucks are what worry me.
This goes exactly to Mr. Brimhall's point. You know, if you keep that traffic bound up for the time that it takes the parents and the mothers to get in there, then you slow it down where they don't want to go through there.
Right.
And that's already a census around town. They know when school's in,
Yep.
you
Stay away
clear
from
of that.
there.
And
Exactly.
that's what we don't want it to become that way unless the whole corridor is going to be widened and changed into that type of corridor. And in that case, you would have stoplights and other type of crossings. But we're a long ways from hitting those type of ADTs.
Okay, any other questions? I would just like to also compliment you, Matt. I know this was really a group effort, because I believe NACOG was involved with this. I know we were all lobbying with our local representatives, Representative Cook in particular, who was chairman of this committee, that really spearheaded this for us on our behalf. So it was a group effort, but thank you,
Absolutely.
especially for leading us on. Vice Mayor, look like you have.
No, I'll give you a motion.
Go right ahead.
I move to approve resolution number 23-1675, entering into an intergovernmental agreement between the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside and the state of Arizona to receive funding in the amount of $2,262,200 for the Porter Mountain Road Improvement Project in the vicinity of Blue Ridge Elementary School.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Heisler, are you okay? Do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, Councillor Heisler. Your vote? Councillor Heisler, how do you vote on this one?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on then to item D7, which is the discussion and consideration of resolution number 23-1676, approving an 8-foot wide utility easement granted to Cellular One of Northeast Arizona at Mountain Meadow Recreation Complex for the leased premises of the communication facility. Matt.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll try to simplify this one and make it easy for you guys. So what happened here was we did a lease agreement because I was very specific about how I wanted the lease agreement between us and Smith Bagley Cellular One. And the reason we did that is we wanted to protect the land that we own, right? At the end of the day, everything that was on the land that we own right now, they have a lease agreement to access that through the lease agreement, right? We didn't need to create a utility easement. However, my foresight wasn't there on this problem. When we started to get requests from other phone carriers, they will not access because they do not hold the lease. So I have to create an easement for them to be able to add to that tower that we have constructed on Mountain Meadow. However, with some creative thinking between me, the town attorney, and Catherine Nunn, thank her for her hard work on this as well, we were able to tie these easements to that lease agreement. So if the lease agreement goes away, these easements go away as well. So that is basically the 30,000-foot view of everything you're looking at in 7 and 8. I had to come up with actual public easements so that the utility companies could use that to access and add their facilities to the tower at Mountain Meadow.
Vice Mayor?
Does that mean we are gonna get some better coverage by some of the other?
Yeah, I don't know that it's my place to say who they're in negotiations with, but I'm sure if you call down there, they would be happy to tell you who they're working with. But they're working with several, they've talked to several different communication companies that want to be on that tower.
Good news, isn't that kind of one of the reasons we
Yeah.
Put it there.
approved that?
Yeah.
Co-location.
And I apologize, I wish I'd have seen this in the beginning, but I thought I had it covered with the lease agreement, so.
Yes, Councilor Brimhall, go ahead.
Mayor, so question, is the tower is owned by the town then?
No, the tower is owned by Smith Bagley. However, if the lease ever goes away, they have to remove everything and return it to the natural state.
And so under the current lease agreement, they're paying the town like $800 a month?
$800 a month, I think, is what they pay us.
And so are those carriers who are gonna hop on that tower, are they paying Cellular One or them a fee?
Yeah, Cellular One will make the money off of that.
Okay, so we won't make it, so, okay.
We did it that way because it really needed communication in that area. It was more about getting the citizens the communication that they needed. If you've ever been in that area, some of you have been in that area, there's very limited cell service over towards the top of the pines, top of the woods, those areas without this tower.
Okay, so if say 3 more companies come on there, they lease out to Cellular One. Cellular One is now making money probably off of those carriers. Can we negotiate an increase into that cost now that more carriers are going on to that?
No, our lease agreement's very specific about the $800 a month. And then it has a, I can't remember, we'll have to go back and look. It's very specific to the $800 a month.
Okay.
Councilor Smith?
Is the easement for underground use only?
Yes, the easements for the underground, and then I think number 8 is the ingress egress easement, which comes in through the same corridor that all of you drive into Mountain Meadow, and we'll get into that one. Same thing.
That's a 20-foot wide.
Yeah, they have to have an ingress egress to the tower to put their facilities on the tower.
But it's not exclusive.
It's exclusive to this lease. If somebody wanted to use it to bring utilities across there, they could. However, they wouldn't be able to access the other side of, there would be nowhere for them to take utilities that would make any sense at this point. But as soon as that lease agreement goes, all of those utilities have to be removed.
Any other questions or comments? Entertain a motion then. Vice Mayor?
I move to approve resolution number 23-1676, granting an 8-foot wide utility easement to Cellular One of Northeast Arizona at the Mountain Meadows Recreation Complex for the leased premises of the communication facility as proposed, and authorize the town manager to execute all documents necessary in connection with this agreement.
I second that.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Councilor Heisler, your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. That's all right. Thank you. That carries unanimously. Item D8, discussion and consideration of resolution number 23-1677, approving a 20-foot wide ingress-egress easement granted to Cellular One of Northeast Arizona at Mountain Meadow Recreation Complex to the leased premises of the communication facility. Matt?
Yeah, so same as we discussed in D7, exact same issue. The lease agreement covers all this, but the other carriers have to have an ingress egress access. And it's also on the exhibit where it shows the drawing where they've got access in and out. It's a complicated legal description. We had to go back and forth with their surveyors multiple times to make sure it was correct, so that it follows the curvature of our road into Mountain Meadow. So,
Any questions for Matt? Comments, motions?
you know, one thing I would
Yes.
ask or add to Mr. Brimhall's question, and maybe I should have cleared this up on the last one. The reason that the amount was set as it was is you got to understand that this is a large investment for Cellular One to put in, that it's going to take many years for them to recuperate what they've got into it. The tower was a significant amount of cost. They paved the sidewalk and curb and gutter all the way into the area. We made them do those improvements. So there's things that we got out of it other than just a monetary number. And so I think that the overall scheme of that whole lease agreement was well done and well thought out, where it wasn't like they were completely losing money and they weren't getting a smoking deal either. So I think at the end of the day, it was a solid agreement. And when we sat down with them and discussed that, they were very upfront with all the costs and what it was going to cost them, and it was going to take 25 years to recuperate the cost or something like that they put into that site. So I think that if that helps you have a better understanding of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on that one? Mayor, would you like to make
I move to approve resolution number 23-1677, granting a 20-foot wide ingress egress easement to Cellular One of Northeast Arizona at Mountain Meadow Recreation Complex as proposed, and authorize the town manager to execute all documents necessary in connection with this agreement.
A second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate all your work on this. Okay. Item number D9. Discussion and consideration of resolution number 23-1678, designating Kevin Rodoff, Assistant Town Manager, Finance Director, as the Chief Fiscal Officer to file the annual expenditure limitation report with the Arizona Auditor General for fiscal year ending June 30th of 2024.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Arizona statute number 41-1279.07E requires the town to designate a chief fiscal officer to be responsible to file the annual expenditure limitation report. It's something we ask you to do every year. I've been the designated person for the 7 years that I've been here. It's basically so that they have someone, if there's a problem, that gets charged with that problem. And so we're asking you to approve this resolution tonight to designate me as the Chief Fiscal Officer for the AELR report for fiscal year 24.
Thank you for taking that on. Any other questions or comments on that one? No?
I can make a motion.
Oh, Councilor Brimhall, go right ahead.
I move to approve resolution number 23-1679, adopting a tentative budget, adopting the estimated amounts required to meet the public.
You're on the wrong one. You're on D9.
Thank you. I move to adopt resolution number 23-1678, designating Assistant Town Manager, Finance Director Kevin Rodoff as the Chief Fiscal Officer, CFO, to file the annual expenditure limitation report with the Arizona Auditor General for FY 6/30/24.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, your right hand. Thank you. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
There it is.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Kevin. All right, item D10. This is a public hearing, discussion, and consideration of resolution number 23-1679, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 for the town of Pinetop-Lakeside.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. So tonight is the culmination of a process that we started in March with several community meetings, public meetings. We had a meeting on May the 16th. We had another meeting on June the 13th, and a lot of discussion in between. So what we've brought to you tonight is to ask you to approve the tentative budget for the fiscal year 23-24. You have two things, I believe. In your packet is the official state forms that you have to officially approve. And that's what gets published in the paper, and that's the public record. You also have, that's not what you're used to looking at. So we also gave you the forms in the format that you're used to looking at. It's got a little bit more breakdown of the individual funds. In the official funds, the special revenue funds are all lumped together. Okay, so I gave you that additional information for your review. This budget, after all of our meetings, is for a total, you'll see on the Schedule A in the official funds, and the official forms, the total budget is just under 30 million. It's $29,531,533. What the significant changes that were made from our last meeting on June the 16th, I'd just like to point out those. We moved the MIAC expenses from the facilities department to the clerk department, but there's no dollar change. It just moved from one department to another. After significant discussions that we had with council, we changed the nonprofit amounts as per council requests. So those are in there. I also changed the final state shared revenue estimates, which are in the general fund and in the street fund. It went up very slightly from what we had on the preliminary estimates. It was just a couple $1,000s. I also added, there was significant discussion about whether the town wanted to go into the residential trash collection business, but we're not to a point to say yay or no, but to facilitate that, I added 1.5 million in revenue and expenses in Fund 22, the solid waste fund. So there's 1.5 million in both the revenue and expenses. I finalized the grants portion of this budget, and that total is just a little over 10 million, 10,040,000. You know, it's been our practice to pump that figure up a little bit, just in case we get the grants that we'll be able to expend them. That includes police department, parks, library, and streets grants. It also includes the 2.2 million that you just approved in the earlier item, so that is in there. Lastly, and Keith alluded to this earlier when we were talking about code enforcement. So what we did to, how do I want to put this? The town has grown over the last 7 years, and we've always had one person that has done animal control and code enforcement. But that person is getting kind of tapped out, and we don't want it to be left off for code enforcement. So what I included in the final budget was a half-time position to be in the community development department strictly for code enforcement. And those are the changes that happened from the June 16th meeting until this meeting. And again, this budget is just under 30 million.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions, comments?
Good job.
Councilor Brimhall?
One question on the code enforcement half part-time position. From your guys' opinion, do you feel like will it be hard to fill that position, or will it just be someone in the community that's up here that wants to do it on their side, or will it be difficult to fill that position? Was my question.
At this point, I don't think we know. It would be ideal if we found a retired person that had, you know, a background in the code enforcement issues. We'll work all that out once, you know, we release the advertisement for the position. It will probably, Keith and I were talking, it will probably be someone that needs to work on a Saturday, because there's a lot of things that happen up here during the weekend. But it remains to be seen, in answer to your question. I hope not. I hope it's not that hard to be, you know, to fulfill, but.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing, so if there's any member of the public that would like to talk to this issue, this is your chance. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Go ahead.
I move to approve resolution number 23-1679, adopting a tentative budget, adopting the estimated amounts required to meet the public expenses for the town of Pinetop-Lakeside fiscal year 2023 to 2024, authorizing and directing publication of statements and schedules of the tentative budget, together with notice of hearing on said budget and notice of date of final adoption of said budget.
A second.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Councilor Heisler?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you for all your work on that, Kevin, and all of our department directors. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to remind everybody you have one more night to see the Freedom Concert Series. If you guys haven't gone to any of those concerts, you've missed out on a real treat. They have been incredible. I'm sorry, I don't know where they're performing tomorrow, but there's a poster out in the entryway. We can find that out for you. So it's been a real treat. Is it the Lodge tomorrow night? Anyway, there being no further business tonight, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.